come on, this is a respiratory virus that's slightly worse in the elderly and already ill than is flu. It's definitely less serious to those who are younger and fit. So why is it you're still hiding from a threat to your health, less of a threat to you than influenza? I can't sweep away a year of highly accurately done propaganda by people who are lying to you. But all I can do is point out that they're lying to you, and really in the end it's up to you.
On the vaccine front, I've been very clear about my concerns about ADE and other complications, and what I perceived, just as you did, to be risks in the strategy that the government was taking.
Why does it matter that the spike gets through the blood-brain barrier? Isn't that what we want it to do?
It's not just that it gets through it, it's that it opens it. And the brain is a special place. I think most humans can agree with that. And we really don't want to have bad stuff getting in there, because It's kind of what makes us human. So opening up the blood-brain barrier means that things that are in your blood, like, say, other viruses, the toxins, all kinds of stuff that normally is sequestered so it can never get into the brain compartment, it suddenly is able to do that. That's bad.
When we looked at the VAERS reports and the different, capture systems, we see that Pfizer and Moderna were having issues with blood clots and thrombocytopenia at the same time, which gave it this very unique footprint.
Denied.
They denied,
the FDA denied in their press release just recently that they gave to PolitiFact. So I received this paper that I mentioned to you from some scientists in Singapore that's just published in a very high-impact journal, American Journal of Hematology, in which they report a series of cerebrovascular coagulopathy, so blood clots in the brain. That's kind of not a good thing.
No.
My position is I can't say whether the risk-benefit ratio makes sense or not, because I don't think they're following protocol and actually calculating the risk-benefit ratio, number one. And number two, that idea of risk-benefit ratio is typically applied as a function of special populations. So risk-benefit for vaccination for pregnant women, risk-benefit for adolescents, elderly, all those things have to be calculated.
Most of which weren't in the phase 3 trials to begin with, right? We skipped all of these susceptible populations, right?
And you trust these we'll use the Moderna and the Pfizer. You trust these vaccines?
I don't trust anything. I'm a pharmaceutical developer, and the lesson is that you have to assume nothing is safe until it's proven that it is, and you have to assume that all drugs and vaccines have side effects. These vaccines have been pitched at us as not having side effects, when in fact they do. And unfortunately, because of some decisions that have been made, we don't really understand the full spectrum of what those side effects are. And so we're being asked to take an experimental product that's not yet licensed. We're being enticed or compelled to take it by public messaging.
Through July 31st, adverse drug reactions includes 20,525 dead in the EU states and 1,960,000 injuries. The estimates are that it may underestimate adverse events in the range of between 10 and 100-fold.
I mean, this is a well-designed killing tool. Language is important, and everything that we say gets totally scrubbed and scrutinized these days. So I think to say it accurately is important. The messenger RNA that gets injected in with this shot co-opts a little piece of machinery in your body called the ribosomes. The ribosomes read the recipe, and as it reads the recipe, it makes this protein called the spike protein. That spike protein is supposed to be the same protein that's on the surface of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and is supposed to be at least similar to the spike proteins on the circulating coronaviruses that have been out there for more than 60 years. And so this spike protein, what it does on the surface of the virus is it acts like a key and binds to something called an ACE receptor on the surface of your cells. When that virus takes its key and binds to the ACE receptor, it opens the door and allows the virus to go in and start to replicate. So what they're trying to do is to develop an antibody to that spike protein to block the key from getting into the lock so it can't get inside the cell and start to replicate. Because the antibody is not made to the entire virus, it's made to a small little piece called a spike protein. So it doesn't behave as the same way an antibody does that is to maybe measles or chickenpox or shingles or mumps or something like that. So the problem is, Alex, is that we are injecting mRNA that has a recipe in it to build a protein to make an antibody against the protein that is supposed to keep us healthy and keep us from getting sick. Yes. We have no idea how long the protein's going to last. We have no idea how long the antibody's going to be around. We have no idea how long the antibody's going to last. We don't know how long they're going to continue to, the B cells are going to be active. We have no idea because we have no long-term studies. And every single one of those steps makes you susceptible to illness for the entire population for an unknown period, maybe the rest of your life. That you may be susceptible to autoimmune disease, shock, allergies, and death from something that is supposed to keep you from getting sick.
So that's the thing to tell you. You never ever give really inadequately tested medicinal products to a pregnant woman. And that's exactly what is happening. Our government is urging pregnant women and women of childbearing age to get vaccinated, and they're telling them they're safe. And that's a lie because those studies have simply not been done. Some of the things I'm going to say are not favourable to the current crop of gene-based vaccines, and it's for that reason that they're being inappropriately used, and I don't think they have a sufficient safety profile to be used as a sort of wide spectrum public health prophylactic. It's quite normal for RNA viruses like SARS-CoV-2, when it replicates, to make typographical errors. That's what it does, typos. It's got a very good error detection, error correction system, so it doesn't make too many typos, but it does make some. And those are called variants. But it's really important that you know that if you find the variant that's most different from the sequence identified in Wuhan, that variant, the most distance, is only 0.3% different from the original sequence. That amount of difference is absolutely not possibly able to represent itself to you as a different virus. That's what people are leading you to think, that maybe variants will escape your immunity, either caused by a vaccine or by natural infection, and it's an absolute lie. There are multiple therapeutic drugs that are at least as effective as vaccines are, they're already available and cheap. So inhaled corticosteroids that are used in asthma reduce symptomatology by about 90%, a study that's published this week. An off-patent drug called ivermectin, it's one of the most widely used drugs in the world, is also able to reduce symptoms at any stage of the disease, including lethality, by about 90%. So you don't need vaccines, and you don't need any of the measures that have been introduced at all.
So yeah, ivermectin is one example, and the data are coming in fairly strong that ivermectin has benefits both as a prophylactic as a therapeutic for severe disease and hospitalization. I had recommended that we use ivermectin in one of the arms of our outpatient study with DoD that we're currently prosecuting.
And we already have a drug which is low cost, safe, widely available, which has been proven to work in many phases of the disease, not only as outpatients, but inpatients. We now currently have 5 published review papers from independent panels from across the world showing how effective ivermectin is.
I have personally treated over 350 patients with COVID. Patients that have diabetes, patients that have high blood pressure, patients that have asthma, old people. I think my oldest patient is 92, 87-year-olds. And the result has been the same. I put them on hydroxychloroquine, I put them on zinc, I put them on Zitromax, and they are all well. For the past few months, I've taken care of over 350 patients. We've not lost one. Not a diabetic, not a somebody with high blood pressure, not somebody with asthma, not an old person. We've not lost one patient.
This is a treatment regimen that's very simple, and it should be in the hands of the American people. The difficult aspect of this is that at the moment, because of politics, it's being blocked from doctors prescribing it, and it's being blocked from pharmacists releasing it. They've been empowered to overrule the doctor's opinion. Why is this not over the counter as you can get it in much of the world, in almost all of Latin America, in Iran, in Indonesia, in sub-Saharan Africa? You can just go and buy it yourself. And the dose, my friends, is 200 milligrams twice in a week and zinc daily.
But hydroxychloroquine is like one of the most, I would say, one of the most safest medications. So it was kind of a little puzzling to me. I remember my mom telling me, is chloroquine now different in America? Because I hear they say it's dangerous. Is that not the same thing we've been taking here for a long time?
Mm-hmm. You're saying that you went back and you found an article from Dr. Anthony
yes,
Fauci.
It was from the NIH under Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Under Dr. Anthony Fauci from the NIH saying this drug, hydroxychloroquine, works.
Yes.
Works to do what?
Works for COVID.
For
it was
COVID.
Like SARS-CoV.
Yeah, when I first heard the phrase lockdown, for example, I hope, like most people, I thought this is a phrase you use in relation to controlling unruly prisoners. It's a control measure. And I think pretty much all that has happened since is to do with control. This myth of asymptomatic transmission, which is simply not true, as I mentioned earlier. In order to transmit a virus to be a good, efficient source of infection, you have to have a lot of virus. And if you have a lot of virus and the virus is attacking you and you are fighting back, that process produces symptoms inevitably. Government policy from the beginning, before even the virus arrived in our country, has turned decades of understanding of how to protect people from infectious diseases on its head. So we've never used lockdown before, and the good reason for that is it's not effective. I've just explained that you need to be symptomatic in order to be infectious. So what we do is we quarantine the sick. We've always done that. We've quarantined the sick because that's how you avoid infecting the wider population. The PCR, or polymerase chain reaction test, that's being used to work out whether your sample or that of a family member or someone in your community is or is not positive for this virus. It's completely fraudulent the way it's being done. You simply cannot run a technique like that at industrial scale and expect the results to be meaningful, and they're not. I don't think they've ever been meaningful. One of the frauds our government and the people they hired to run the testing have done is they refused to entertain the idea that there is something called a false positive rate. I assure you, if you run any diagnostic test repeatedly, sometimes there'll be a positive result when there's nothing in the sample. That's called a false positive. So I'm particularly troubled at the moment by the repeated mention in the media and by all sorts of people of so-called vaccine passports. If you're an elderly and vulnerable person and you've chosen to be vaccinated, you are now protected against that virus. It doesn't matter what anyone around you is doing, whether they've got the virus or not got the virus. You've got your armour on. You don't need to see anyone else's vaccine status. You don't need to know anything about them. This system is being put in place using lies, and it's being put in place using lies for some purpose, and I believe that purpose is complete totalitarian control. And I think the purpose of that is going to be mass depopulation. I can't think of a single benign interpretation for the simple creation of these top-up vaccines, let alone the lies that surround them. And I'm absolutely terrified that the combination of vaccine passports and top-up vaccines is going to lead to mass depopulation, deliberate execution, potentially of billions of people. Find someone else who's also suspicious, and if you find that person, go and find yet other people. You don't need to do anything violent, you just need to say, stop, I'm withdrawing my consent. This is a stupid experiment. We've had enough now. End of story. Go back to normal life. That's all you need to do at the moment. It's so astonishingly simple. Normality is literally at arm's length, but it won't be soon. If the vaccine passports system is voted in by our corrupt people in Westminster, who are also stupid, that will be the end of liberal democracy. And I don't think there's any way out of that. We'll be standing at the gates of hell.